Hello YouTube. Today I want to start a video series discussing a topic that seems to pop up every time I have discussions with skeptics and atheists here on YouTube about God and the Bible, and that is the issue of genocide. I've entitled this video in the video series that I'm going to produce here, Genocide in the Bible, with genocide in quotation marks, and I'll explain that in a second. I would like to spend this video series discussing the issues surrounding the Canaanites, the issues surrounding the Canaanites found in the books of Deuteronomy and Joshua, the Midianites found in Numbers 31, and the Amalekites found in 1 Samuel chapter 15. But before I do that, I just want to lay some groundwork. And so these first couple of videos, I'm not going to discuss those specific issues, but just discuss some I believe some foundational teachings that need to be addressed first. Genocide in the Bible, this issue should be a stomach-turning one for all sensitive hearts, especially Christians. In this video and the following videos, we will proceed soberly and humbly through the many complexities that are involved herein. The question is often asked, how could a God of love order the annihilation of the Canaanites? Does the Bible actually portray God as infinitely merciful and just, and at the same time a genocidal deity, contradicting itself at a deep moral level? Or as skeptics oftentimes put it, how do we reconcile God's character as it relates to the instruction of the children of Israel for murder and genocide in the Old Testament with God's character and instruction in the New Testament to love, turn the other cheek, and to have an attitude of service toward your fellow man? Before we can deal with this issue, it is important that we establish the true nature of God. The portrayal of God in the Bible is not actually infinitely merciful and just deity as if these were axes on a graph, but rather that God delights more in mercy than in judgment. His basic preferences are away from judgment. Say to them, as I live, declares the Lord God, I take no pleasure in the death of the wicked, but rather the wicked turn from their way and live. Turn back from your evil ways. Why then will you die, O house of Israel? Exodus 33:11. God's responses are asymmetrical. His compassion is to 1,000 generations, but his moral outrage extends only to the immediate household or to the third generation. Judgment is called his strange alien work in Isaiah chapter 28, verse 21. His familiar work is providing regular environments for community life and experience without massive divine interventions. We are supposed to develop ourselves and our characters by internal decisions to choose the good and to honor one another and to play our part in the development of others. His normal operating procedures to build reward loss consequences into our consciousness and the workings of the basic interpersonal relationships from which we construct second-order social roles, and then let us get on with living. Even when the relationships get bad, he normally allows the system to try and correct itself, either through peer pressure or legal systems. Even in the biblical history surrounding Israel, in which God's most overt or visible historical actions took place, the amount of judgmental intervention is tiny compared to what perhaps might have been expected, and the biblical account is filled with the cries of the innocent asking, why don't you do something about these malicious oppressors, O God? And as far as God being a genocidal deity, the biblical events described do not seem to match what we think of the term today. Even in the little section on the Amalekites in 1 Samuel 15, the description of the situation doesn't even come close to what we consider genocide today. With most things considered, genocide typically involves groups internal to the country in question, and they are either killed outright by their own government, sometimes slowly through torture or abuse, or deported to some place of sure-to-kill-them environment. Academic definitions of genocide exclude combat deaths and non-combatants that die as a byproduct of military action. It generally denotes the deliberate killing of someone solely because of their group membership, indelible group membership, indelible being the term used for race, ethnicity, nationality, or those characteristics that are indelible. I would point you to the work of R.J. Rummel, and I'll put a link to his website in the description box for more information on the actual definitions of genocide. Consider some of the better known cases, and I think all of us will agree that these are clear cases of genocide. The government of the Ottoman Empire deported 2/3 or more of its estimated 1 to 2 million Armenian citizens during World War I, They were forced into the deserts of present-day Syria, and most died due slowly to starvation and dehydration. This was an eternal group that was forced out of the country into a desert to die. And then, of course, there's the Nazi genocide actions against the Jews and the Romanians, who were also initially targeted as an internal people. During World War II, the government of Croatia killed an estimated 200 to 350,000 of its internal Serbian citizens. And then, of course, there's Pol Pot's regime in Cambodia, which killed approximately 31% of its own population, approximately 2 million people. Although some of this would be considered democide or based on indelible characteristics such as political alignment instead of genocide proper. And then there's the case in Rwanda, where between 500,000 and 1 million of the Tutsi ethnic group, all internal peoples, were killed by the Hutu ethnic group. And of course, fighting had been going on between them for some time. Notice, I think when we discuss the Canaanites, Amalekites, and Midianites in the Old Testament, we should notice how extremely different these are from those cases. The Canaanites, Midianites, and Amalekites were not an internal group. They were not a minority group. Canaanites were not targeted because of their Canaanite-ness. They were never under the government control of Israel. They were not pursued or hunted in other countries for extermination. Some scholars identify 4 types of genocide. There's the ideological, where social homogeneity is sought through ethnic cleansing of internal pollutants. So this would include examples of the Nazi Holocaust, the Armenian massacres, and the Cambodian purges. There is retributive. This is undertaken to eliminate a real or potential political threat, but again, these are most likely to occur when one group dominates another group and fears its rebellion when the other group actually rebels. The example given here is that of the Hutu-Tutsi conflict in Rwanda. There's the developmental genocide. This is where genocide is undertaken for economic gain. The case in Paraguay in the 60s and 70s, where they deported or killed an estimated half of the native Indian population to allow for expansion of logging and cattle raising enterprises in the nation's interior, would be an example. And then there's despotic. This is intended to spread terror among real or potential enemies. Examples of this would be the Ugandan presidents who killed hundreds of thousands of the Ugandans who opposed their power. What all this means is that although it would not bear on the main ethical sensitivity here, it is historically inaccurate to label the military action of Israel against the Canaanites, Amalekites, and Midianites as genocidal. This is still the case even if we're only talking about killing the families of the warriors. There are none of the defining elements of genocide, as the term is used by experts, present in the accounts of the initiative. Let's be clear on this. I am not exploring how to justify a genocide, because in the first place it is not a genocide. Interestingly, the only case we have in the Bible something approaching genocide in the book is in the book of Esther, where Haman, a potential official, develops a plot in which the internal people would be allowed to attack, kill, and plunder the internal Jews in the nation. This is very close to genocide, and it's quite ironic that Haman is actually called an Agite and is said to be an Amalekite by Josephus. I will continue this conversation in the next video. Thanks.